Good morning, everyone. I just heard that, and I think I just sound like a teacher there, so apologies for that. I'm excited to take on the stage to see you all. For those of you who know me, I'm Anthony. For those of you who don't, hello, I'm the Director of Product here at Localyze. A big passion of mine, I'm sitting down now, is solving complex problems with technology. And that's why I'm super excited to be moderating the panel today with the three people to my left here, where we'll explore how technology plays a big part in talent management, from bringing the right people, right international talent across, to helpful ways for distributed teams to stay connected, as well as obviously how growth can work to transcend borders there, but all really importantly without losing sight of what makes us people and what makes us human, which is compassion, empathy, and understanding. So help me welcome our panelists here to my left, and if you can take a minute or so and introduce each one of yourselves.
First of all, can I say it's really cool to come and see a all-female panel. Can I have a clap for that? Sorry. Sick of people talking about diversity and it just doesn't happen. Anyway, I'm Melina Jacovou. I'm the chief exec and founder of Propel. We're a talent business, we're a headhunting business, we're a recruitment business, and for well over a couple of decades, Propel has been helping international businesses land here in the UK, grow in the UK, and mobilise their teams. We work in that really disruptive space. Those organisations are either PE or VC backed. So I've seen a lot and I've been around for a while. So thank you for the invite. It's great to be here.
Hi, I'm Rama. I'm VP People at Mention Me. I just had to look over and check my title. I am VP People at Mention Me. Mention Me is a customer advocacy platform. So essentially we help e-commerce businesses get to know who their best customers are. We then use that data, combine it with a customer referral, and then help those businesses to grow through their best customers. So that's me.
Hi everybody, I'm Robbie Osborne. I'd like to start with a quick apology. If I'm looking a little bit sweaty, it's because my flight was 2 hours delayed this morning and I arrived about 5 minutes ago. But hey, global mobility. So I work as head of finance in Humans. We make a HRIS, obviously very people-centric as well. Big believers in the flexible way the world of work is going, and we believe in giving people the right tools to manage data and processes effectively to support that.
Nice. Thanks for coming across, everyone. So let's start with the big picture. Technology has always been a part of how people and companies work, right? And yet things feel a bit different now, especially over the last few years with Web3 and Gen AI coming across. There seems to be more of everything, more opportunities, more growth, more innovation, but also much more anxiety of where the future is heading. Do you think that's the case, or do you think we're kind of stuck in this virtuous cycle of being super excited and scared of what's next?
If we're all going to be honest with each other, when we go deep into ourselves, everyone is scared of the change. We all are. You know, it makes us frightened, it makes us unnerved. But if we look at what technology has done for us as a society over the X amount of years, it's helped in education. Look at the platforms. It's helped in health. It's helped in e-learning, all those kind of things that have added huge value to us in terms of travel, etc. But fundamentally, if we don't embrace change, we're just going to be Luddites. If we don't get technology and put our arms around it, as long as we don't abuse it, because it can't think for us, we have to pull the levers of the tech and then let it go off. But I think we embrace it and we run with it and we see the value of it, but we're very mindful that we take care of it.
I think my view on it is that, there's more visibility of everything. There's more visibility of optimism, more visibility of skepticism, and it's in front of us constantly. I think one of the best examples of this was when we all experienced COVID. And so we feel like we're in this cycle. But if we think about progress through that, I see it more as a bit of a spiral. So through COVID, we had this extreme where it was everyone's working from home and everyone was like, oh, but it can be done. And then we come out of COVID and businesses saying, actually, some businesses saying we need to get back to work. So we're kind of on that downwards bit of the spiral, but ultimately we've moved forward. And I think similar with most tech that comes to us, there'll be this big sense of optimism. There'll be definitely fear around it as well. There'll be a spike in something, and then we'll probably come back off it a little bit, but ultimately there will have been progress. And I think in the AI world and that kind of thing, we're kind of maybe heading towards that peak. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think for the most part, the challenges and the problems that companies and people are facing yeah, absolutely, there's new slants on them, but for the most part, there's still the same problems that companies have always grappled with. I think it's more on the other side of the equation where there's so many tools, so many potential solutions out there that's the bit for me that has changed so much in the last few years. I think, absolutely agree that there's always going to be a degree of resistance to change, but I think if you look at it through a slightly different lens, initially, especially in organizations, there's often optimism that, oh, this one new tool is going to be the panacea that's going to solve everything for me and everything is going to be great. And the anxiety starts to creep in when the brutal realization comes that that might not be the case. So grappling with that changing world and just the increased volumes of everything absolutely is a very real cause for anxiety, and helping people navigate through that is really, really difficult. But there is still huge opportunity there too. And maybe I'm the optimist, but I'm definitely encouraged by how much things have changed and how many solutions are out there.
I think one more point is you can get tools for anxiety.
Nice, definitely, and definitely take them up on that. So let's see how technology can play as like a part in that first step of talent management and acquiring talent. Where do you see the biggest potential technology has in tackling things like talent shortages, or finding the right people? Any kind of do's and don'ts that you three can kind of share about mixing technology and talent acquisition? And you can't just say ChatGPT.
Okay, we'll move on to Robbie. I think contact is one of the biggest things, right? So with the level of talent out there, so actually when I was doing some prep, I came across this stat on an article that I thought was really interesting. So in the next 10 years, 260 million uni grads are going to enter the job market. And for context, 260 million is the same number of the entire talent market in the 1990s. So growth is just exponential. But the second interesting point is that those 260 million are not coming from those powerhouse markets like the US and Europe and China and Japan. They're almost all coming from outside of those powerhouse regions. So if that's the case, how are we going to access them? And so access now is easier with automation and messaging, et cetera, but that's also creating a spam issue for a lot of people too. I don't know about everyone else's inboxes, but you get through it and, how many are we archiving and how many are we actually reading? And so I think there's that balance now that needs to come through of being able to have a really wide net while being very specific and local at the same time, which I think is a very fine line to tread, and I think we're all still working it out. For me, the overarching point here is contact and ability to spread that net wide is the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this so much. Speeding up those processes are amazing. I mean, I've been around for a long time, and I remember many, many years ago when you'd be reaching out to X amount of candidates if you were doing a big search. Now you can use so much technology and reach out to hundreds in a day. So it speeds up the processes and it speeds up the reach. I think the issue is, again, the connectivity bit, because you can't automate everything. You need to, at one point, connect from a human perspective. But there's lots of pros and cons. Again, you've just got to be in control of it. But your outreach is huge using those techs.
Yeah, I think as people become more and more tech savvy, the expectations continue to rise, and it's not just about, can I do this? It's also about, is it a really nice experience to do this? And that applies from both the candidate side and the company side. So I think that fundamentally has changed things. I think obviously it goes without saying that the cultural shift brought on by COVID and the transition to remote work, global mobility, people just viewing their lives differently and their careers differently, that flexibility has changed things too hugely. And I think technology has already started to kind of fill that gap and change the way things are done. But I would anticipate a lot more is going to happen in the next coming years as that continues to evolve.
And people are really bright. If you reach out to them through one of these technologies like Poly AI or whatever it might be, they know it's not a human being, and more often than not, they won't get back. So that's something to really take into consideration.
Yeah, human touch. It's a very anxious time looking for a new job and trying to find a new job, right?
At the moment, it's more, it's very, let's not talk about anxiety anymore.
And actually, sorry,
whole room of people leaving, anxious.
I'd say one small bit, even just to add to that as well, I think there's nothing worse, we've kind of alluded to it, there's nothing worse than just spamming people with, volume. But with the raised expectations comes that anticipation of, is this going to be a timely response? If somebody even does reply to an automated message, am I going to get a human contact back in the next like minutes, not even hours? And if that's not kind of there to support it, I think that's a very negative experience for people. So yeah, like you said, people are aware.
I also think people, I mean, I say this all the time, if you hear me talk, people follow people. They love leaders. They love that. You know, it's a human that attracts someone. You see where statistics, why do people stay in organisations? Back to the point here, they stay, they're retained because they've got great managers, they've got great leaders, they've got great people. You can't automate that on just a reach out.
Exactly. And Ash, you mentioned about the grads entering the market and they're not coming from these powerhouses. So as a global mobility company, I have to ask, how do teams leverage technology to find that right talent for the right skill sets and move them across borders?
Yeah, I think finding it is one being open to it being open to locations. So I think there's always that assumed kind of, you know, we need this role, and there's already an automatic assumption, probably from a bunch of people around it, of where that person's going to be based. And if that's already ingrained, then the search is probably going to go in that direction. So I think a really important part around search is engaging the hiring managers in the potential of having a dispersed team. And if they're not used to having a dispersed team, this goes back to what was mentioned on the previous panel around enabling those leaders to understand what it means to lead a dispersed team, as well as hire a dispersed team. Otherwise, they will just default to actually find me someone a little bit more local. So I think it's actually less to do with the search as such, more to do with the expectation of what that candidate pipeline is going to look like. I mean, if a hiring manager came to a talent partner on my team, for example, and said, you know, I'm looking for someone in this role, and they spec'd it out, and it was that question around, you know, where would you like them to be based ideally? Imagine if we were just removed that question and then suggested applicants without any location attached to them, and they spoke to an amazing applicant and said, oh, by the way, they're based over here, then that kind of breaks that wall down. So, yeah, I think that expectation needs to be removed.
I think that's absolutely amazing, and that is totally the way forward, remote working, 100%. We've done that. When you look at CVs, when you approach an organisation with a shortlist, you don't talk about salaries anymore. You don't talk about gender. You don't talk about any of that, and you shouldn't be talking about where they should be. As long as you've got the infrastructure, that's what's really important. But that is certainly the way forward, remote working, 100%.
Yeah, totally agree. We've a similar model as well. I think candidates are very sharp and savvy, and they know that, for example, if you see a role listed as hybrid, the first question you should ask is, well, what exactly does hybrid working mean? Is that 4 days in the office and 1 day from home? Can be anywhere? So when you list a role as remote, or when you explain that a role is remote, I think it's very clear that the expectation has been set early with the candidate and the employer. I think one of the challenges, though, is, and I'm a huge believer in the remote kind of model as well, but I think one of the challenges we faced a little bit of is you kind of go in with a mentality of, okay, this role could be remote or it could be based in the office, and you kind of wait and you sort of see who are the best candidates that you attract to it, and you make your decision based on that. That can work in small ad hoc cases, but that's not a great strategy, because you don't want to have kind of, when you consider factors like seniority, role, responsibility, where someone is at in what stage in their career, you don't necessarily want to have a kind of a blanket approach of where anything goes. You want to be thinking these things through, so that if you do opt for a remote model within a certain team or a department or even a kind of a region, that you've thought through what's going to be required to support these people in ways that are different to how you would support people in the office. And that's, you know, again, it's very doable. Technology makes it a lot easier, but you need the strategy there, and you need to have it thought through that you're not just kind of jumping into this blindly.
Yeah, you definitely need the infrastructure in place, absolutely.
Cool. So now you've acquired that talent, you've brought them across borders, or they're working remotely, but they've just started, right? They've just started their role, the fun's just beginning. So how do you enable them to succeed in their roles and unlock their potential? And how can technology be less about monitoring and policing someone's work and more about making those connections and help people working together and growing and learning? And how do you kind of balance those two without kind of overly monitoring and policing someone?
Well, you have to make it fun. And you have to not police it. And sometimes you put that technology, whilst you might choose that technology because you need to put the infrastructure in place, you put it in the hands of the ambassadors. You put it in the hands of the people that are interested in X, Y, and Z, and you let them lead by the front, and you let them do things that they enjoy, that they want to talk about, that they want to take communities on. They want to do that. They want to lead, and they want to do it. There's loads of stuff out there. I mean, last night we were with a client. It was brilliant. They've got a bit of technology called Bonus. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's all about values. The values of the business underpin the business. And anyone in that organisation that shouts about the values, or someone else that shouts about the value, they promote it on Bonus, and then they get a bonus at the end, whatever that. But it's great because they're connecting with each other and they're doing stuff together. So it's about making it fun and not policing it. Not forced fun. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think policing, is always, well, policing productivity, if you like, has always been there, and it's normally, I think from what I've seen and experienced and heard, policing of productivity is normally higher when trust is lower, and trust is normally lower when leaders haven't been enabled. And so I think we're back into this sort of cyclical. We've got to start with the leaders, and if the leaders are able to inspire their people and build a sense of trust with them, you're probably going to get more from those people because they want to be there and they want to do a good job, and they want to be productive, and they want to progress, and they want to grow and develop. But if they're there to do a job because they're being policed to do the right things, they're going to get tasks done. They're going to check the box, and then we're done. And I think now we're in an age where technology is kind of being blamed for it, when actually that's been there since pre-technology anyway, or the technology we have now. And I think it's always been down to the leader. So I think it's less to do with tech and more to do with, again, comes back to enabling leaders to inspire teams and build that sense of trust regardless of where they're based.
Yeah, I actually, before I joined Humans 18 months ago, I worked for a large corporation. Boo. And as a part of that, I think midway through my career, transferred from Dublin to New York. So I went through a global mobility process. I will say it probably was a very studgy, kind of slow, cumbersome process at the time. Again, I think technology has come on a long way. I think mentalities have shifted a lot since. So I'd imagine it wouldn't be as bad now. But you're faced with kind of, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of kind of questions around, is this the right move for me, my family, is this the right timing? And you're also kind of, at least I was, more or less interacting with just a mailbox, and you're kind of like, this isn't a great experience. So I think if you kind of break it down into the three phases, one around the kind of the attraction of talent, two around the onboarding of talent, and then three kind of the running, or at least the first kind of few months or years of that person like scaling. There is a huge amount of that needs to be done to kind of put that person at ease and enable them for success in the context of the organization. I think if I was to apply my experience now to the way we would think about it, I'm a huge believer in the point that the previous panel closed with, which is that flexibility is above all like one of the most important things you can do as an employer. But the trade-off for flexibility is accountability, and you can only allow kind of people to be fully flexible in their roles and in their working styles if you're also kind of expecting accountability back. And I think that's a totally fair trade-off for the vast majority of people. So the question for me becomes, how can you put in the values, the culture, and also the structure and technology to drive that?
Yeah, I'm totally behind that. People need to turn up and show up. They need to know what's required of them. You need to keep touching all the points with them consistently for appraisals. So actually, it's about output. Us for as business, I mean, we started to get technology into our business just before the pandemic, real technology that's all data-led. Only tells a bit of the story, but what it does talk about is productivity. And then from then you can get your appraisals around that and your connectivity and your touch points. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But it's about building those communities.
First thing I'd say, Robbie, is if you'd used Localyze for that move, it'd been 10 times better, right?
Some large corporate clients coming your way.
It's fine. It's all right. And then we see that with the large tech companies, your points before, like Meta and Amazon wanting to go 5 days in the office because they don't trust their people, and they're measuring productivity by bums on seats, which isn't the right way to go. Just based on timing, I'll finish up with the last question and then Q&A. When we talk about technology, like the last panel, about predictions. So over the last year, let's take a bit shorter, over the last year, what have you seen as the most impactful things that has changed in 2023, and then what do you think in terms of predictions, just for next year in 2024, like in terms of impact on technology?
Should I go first? So I think AI has been the big thing this year, right? And over the last year and a half or so. And I think what that's going to trigger for the coming year is a renewed perspective on human connection. Because I think there's so much automation around contact, so much automation around conversations, et cetera, and streamlining and scaling. That's going to mean that I think the magnifying glass on human connection and how to create more of that in a meaningful way where it matters is going to really accelerate through 2024. At least that's what I hope.
I mean, I think we're going to see some winners and losers. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I really believe that. I think those people that don't put their arms around flexible or hybrid and actually listen to the talent pool are going to be left behind. I won't go on too much about your point that you mentioned about Meta 5 days a week. They want their teams in 5. I talk to the talent pool. My teams talk to the talent pool every day, 12 hours a day, all the time, 24 hours. No one wants that. They don't want that. So I think the winners and losers are going to be around flexible working. I think AI is going to be challenging because, you know, some jobs will go, but some won't. And also this bit around we have to upskill around machine learning, and AI is going to be really interesting. But from a market perspective, genuinely, we all know that it's been tough, but I'm definitely seeing green shoots. I'm seeing companies that were laying off people now rehiring. And so there's good stuff out there, but flexible working is going to be key.
I possibly would have made either of those 2 points if I'd gone first, so I'll go a little bit left field.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
feel
okay.
Anxious.
Okay. We're all
Feeling
a team.
anxious.
We're all a team. I suppose when I look back over 2023, one of the biggest things for us, and it definitely wasn't just a 2023 issue, I suppose change. It's something that's been kind of evolving for a long time, but I think the use of data in general has been on such a rise, and I think I'm kind of putting my finance hat on a little bit. I think HR has, to a degree, lagged behind that a little bit, and maybe just in terms of what's available to them. I think the coming year or years is really going to show some like clever innovations in that space, and whether that's on the kind of employee engagement side, whether it's on the kind of workforce insight side, whether it's on compensation. I think there's a lot of areas that, you know, the needle could be moved very, very quickly, and I think that's really exciting for HR leaders. Nice.
More budgets opening up then?
Ours specifically or generally?
Can I just make one more quick point just around culture? Just one other thing is, I think there's been this movement this year around culture and how culture's not there to be transferred, it's there to be grown. And so there's, you know, typically in the past you'll have a business that's in one location, they open in a new location, and the thinking generally can be, how do we make sure our culture transfers overseas? And I think that there's a really positive movement underway, which is, well, this is our culture here, but it doesn't mean it's going to work over there. And the question is, for that region over there, what does the culture need to be for them, and how is that culture going to reflect who we are? And so culture is really becoming this thing that it reflects the people who embody it, as opposed to it being something that's top down from the business. And I think that's going to be really good for businesses that expand internationally.
I absolutely adore that. I think that's so on point. So I'm in love with you because, I mean, politics, religion, all these things are who we are and what we do. Even the way we speak, what we say. So that is so poignant at the moment. I mean, you must be doing loads around that, which is really intellectual stuff.